Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Some postdoctoral scholars will not only be out of a job by the end of the month, they may be forced to move out of the country. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It's been almost a year since academic workers at UC San Diego signed a new contract with the administration, and the new year brings the threat of deportation for some international scholars. KPBS education reporter MG Perez has followed the ongoing conflict since, which now could lead to families being separated.
I'm going to be with my team, and I work for that.
Yu Gao and Suresh Madheshwaran are just weeks away from being forced out of the U.S. with the real possibility of leaving family behind.
It just feels very challenging to live separately from my husband. And we love each other so much.
So I have a 30 days grace period. Within this 30 days, I have to leave this country. After having a newborn baby, without a passport, without SSN, that's think of my mindset. Yeah, how am I going to take my baby back? Am I going to be separated?
Gao is on a student visa from China. Madheshwaran has a J1 exchange visitor visa. Both are allowed to remain in the country as long as they are employed in their postdoctoral jobs in academic research at UC San Diego. Both said they have been terminated, though as members of the UAW Academic Workers Union, they believe their contracts require at least a 2-year assignment. Gao's only been a researcher at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography a year. She was told there's no more funding for her position, something she says is not true.
I was informed there are still 4 to 5 months of funding left, but my supervisor refused to use it to renew my contract or to give me a temporary position so I can have some time or grace period to find my next position.
Her husband is also on a student visa, finishing up a PhD program next summer. She will have to return to China if she doesn't get her job back, while he remains. But they both will have to leave student housing by the end of the month. Madheshwaran has a 2-month-old baby girl with his wife. The couple would have to return to their home in India, but the infant is an American citizen without a passport or travel visa. He was told he was out of a job while on paternity leave.
There is no transparency between me and my boss or with the university. First thing, transparency is not there.
The university's administration has the ultimate authority over the fate of academic workers, but postdoctoral scholars are under the direct supervision of their principal investigator, known as PIs. What they say goes, and the university follows, with few exceptions. There are at least 3 other international postdoc scholars facing deportation, too. In December, union members protested outside the UC San Diego Moores Cancer Center, where Madheshwaran is a cancer researcher and a 3-time cancer survivor himself.
It's our view that the university really doesn't want us to implement this contract that they signed. And so our position is that we are going to continue to fight and make sure that every worker gets their rights that they deserve.
We reached out to UC San Diego administration for comment on the terminations. A spokesperson said they would get back to us today. They did not, leaving these international scholars and their families wondering what the new year will bring. MG Perez, KPBS News.
San Diego's getting another taste of big ocean waves this week. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says several factors are feeding the heavy winter surf.
The waves were not washing over the seawall in the La Jolla Children's Pool, but they were big enough to delight Austin Palmondon. Beth Samos was visiting from Annapolis, Maryland, and she was taking in the sights.
We see lots of beautiful waves that are coming in a very nice formation, and the waves are coming in and hitting the seawall from the old pool.
The rugged shoreline attracted visitors and locals who came for the show. A warmer than usual ocean is raising sea levels a bit, but the waves that are crashing into the San Diego coast actually originated on the other side of the Pacific Ocean.
And so we have the El Nino storm activity in the Pacific that creates these long period powerful waves that cross the entire ocean and then come to our coast, on top of a somewhat elevated sea level. And then in combination with this, we were seeing some of the largest tidal swings of the year.
James Barron says a research buoy floating off the coast of San Pedro for 25 years has recorded some of the strongest wave action in the last 2 years. The big swells are spectacular and somewhat rare, but they aren't unprecedented. The coast was pummeled back in 1983, another El Nino year.
That was a winter when a lot of the structures along the West Coast were damaged, and a lot of sediment loss and transport erosion and so forth.
The waves were so powerful, they brought down a Santa Monica pier structure.
This winter is giving us a little sample of what can happen when you get systems like that, but so far not to the extent that we saw during that winter.
All the conditions that came together back in 1983 to make those big waves and the events this week will become more frequent as the planet's temperature warms. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
I'm Ariella Scalise, and coming up tonight, temperatures will be chilly down into the 40s. We will be briefly colder before a little bit of a warm up, and then sharply colder conditions and more rain and snow on the way. A closer look at all the details is coming up.
The man who bribed scores of Navy officers over 2 decades, then escaped from house arrest in San Diego last year, is back and in court today. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer was at the federal courthouse downtown.
Former Navy contractor Leonard Glenn Francis, better known as Fat Leonard, is back in San Diego after going on the lam before he could be sentenced for bribery. Francis was in this courthouse today. His attorneys told the judge they'd no longer be representing the former businessman. Francis was arrested in a San Diego hotel in 2013 and pleaded guilty to bribery in 2015. His sentencing, however, was postponed while he helped prosecutors build cases against dozens of Navy officers. That changed after the case against several former 7th Fleet officers fell apart after allegations of prosecutorial misconduct led to their convictions being overturned. Francis allegedly cut off his ankle monitor and walked out of the Carmel Valley home he was renting. He fled first to Mexico, then ended up in Venezuela, where he was arrested. In December, Francis was returned to the United States in a prisoner swap. He's due back in court February 8th, where prosecutors hope to see him sentenced more than 8 years after his conviction. They expect to file charges related to his flight from custody at a later date. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
It was a busy morning along the border today as 4 crossings reopened, including Ped West and San Ysidro. It was shut down in November so Customs and Border Protection agents could focus on the surge of migrants in December. The White House says numbers of people seeking asylum at the border are down so the crossings can reopen. Many people crossing the border are relieved.
Because it only takes 5 minutes instead of crossing from San Ysidro, it can take you over 4 hours. You have to wake up 4 hours earlier in order to get to your job on time.
The northbound entrance is open daily from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Southbound entrance is open daily from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Agreeing on a problem doesn't mean agreeing on a solution. The crisis at the southern border is making that clear as our recent efforts to address it. Amy Kiley has this look at the negotiations.
America is at a breaking point with record levels of illegal immigration.
We have a broken immigration system that is the one single fact about which everyone agrees. What lawmakers don't agree on is how to fix it. A GOP visit to Eagle Pass, Texas yesterday is emphasizing that division and renewing calls for compromise.
H.R. 2 is the necessary ingredient.
H.R. 2 doesn't have Democratic votes.
H.R. 2 would codify some Trump-era border policies, like keeping migrants in Mexico during the asylum-seeking process. Even some lawmakers who support the plan say it's doomed.
I'm negotiating with a White House that vehemently disagrees and has already said they're going to veto that, and a Democratic Senate.
Instead of H.R. 2, the White House says it wants more funding for Border Patrol agents and immigration judges. Senate negotiators are working on bipartisan changes to asylum laws and parole policies. They're also considering more power for expulsions and border shutdowns. But many House Republicans say they'll only back H.R. 2 or a bill like it. That's even though senators are discussing ideas conservatives usually support.
Our goal has been to find a practical solution to the crisis.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, we speak to the Homeland Security Secretary as recent surges in immigration renew debate in Congress and across the nation. It's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Pro-Palestinian protesters forced California lawmakers to shut down businesses at the state capitol. Lawmakers returned to the Capitol for their first day of work yesterday, were met with calls to support a ceasefire in Gaza. Protesters hung banners and handmade paper poppies to mark Palestinian lives lost. The assembly went into recess and the session was adjourned.
If this is going to continue, where people are going to use this to shut down government business, that's not an appropriate way to get your viewpoint across.
66% of American voters are calling for a ceasefire, are demanding this from our legislators. It is their job as our representatives to listen to us and to call for a lasting ceasefire. It is never too late. Join us.
Republican lawmakers plan to introduce a resolution to condemn Hamas. A letter has also circulated to staffers urging their bosses to support a ceasefire in Gaza. A barrier designed to prevent suicide attempts at the Golden Gate Bridge is complete. It's comprised of steel nets just below the sidewalks on both sides of the structure. More than 2,000 people died by suicide on the bridge since it opened in 1937. The project cost $224 million. The latest county COVID surveillance shows a big increase in the amount of virus in the community right now. The numbers are the highest they've been in 2 years. But KPBS reporter Melissa May tells us hospitalizations are nowhere near what they were back then.
Since early in the pandemic, the presence of COVID and other respiratory viruses in the county have been monitored through wastewater surveillance. Dr. Christopher Longhurst of UC San Diego Health puts the recent increase in viral load into perspective.
What we've seen recently is the greatest increase in COVID virus in wastewater since the Omicron surge of a couple of winters ago. But of course, these are different variants, and we're not completely sure if this is predicting a larger outbreak or really reflective of the fact that COVID has already gone up.
Even though the infection numbers are similar to those in January 2022, Longhurst says the good news is there are far fewer hospitalizations compared to then.
We do have some patients at UCSD Health who are admitted for COVID, but we actually have more patients who are admitted with COVID, but for other reasons like pregnancy or trauma.
Some of the reasons for the current low hospitalizations are less severe variants and people's immunity. But he says that could change.
We will likely see more hospitalizations in 1, 2, 3 weeks from now than we're seeing currently.
The reason for the current spike is simple.
We just finished the holidays, and so this is a normal occurrence every winter. Before COVID, we traded other viruses like the flu and RSV. And in fact, influenza and RSV are also quite high right now. So it's common that people will have had the sniffles at the holiday parties and exchange those viruses.
Longhurst encourages those who are high risk to keep up to date with vaccines and boosters. Melissa May, KPBS News.
Winter weather is expected to pound both coasts in the days ahead. Several parts of California are digging and driving out of several inches that have fallen since yesterday, while parts of the Northeast are bracing for snow, rain, and potentially damaging winds through the weekend. Laura Aguirre has more on what residents in these regions can expect.
We've been waiting for the snow to come, so for it to start dumping like it is right now, we are just overjoyed.
Some residents are happy for a snow day or two in the higher elevation counties northeast of Los Angeles, widely blanketed in snow that started falling Wednesday. While neighbors to their north in the Sierra Nevada mountains saw up to 15 inches of snowfall in some areas. For one ski resort employee, the notable accumulation after a relatively mild winter so far was a welcome sight.
It's definitely good weather for skiers and snowboarders.
Winter weather alerts and storm warnings now pepper the Four Corners region through Friday. That's Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico, according to the National Weather Service. Some of those areas could get over a foot of snow, while parts of the southern and central plains could see up to 5 inches through Friday afternoon. The weekend will see severe winter weather rolling through the Northeast. Forecasters say parts of Pennsylvania, New York, and New England could be in for their first significant snowfall of the season. It may be southern New York's first brush with snow this winter, but folks upstate near Buffalo have already had to use their shovels in recent weeks after a winter storm around Thanksgiving. The snowy weather is expected to hang over parts of the Northeast through Sunday. I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
All right, let's take a look at our weather headlines that we're going to be tracking here. Some high clouds and gusty winds returning before a slight warm up, and then sharply cooler temperatures move back in addition to some rain and snow showers as we head into the day on Sunday. I do want to let you know, still through tonight, we are watching that high surf warning from Santa Monica down into San Diego as we continue to see those high waves. Looking at temperatures through tonight in San Diego County, down into the 30s in Oceanside, San Diego 45, Chula Vista 43, Borrego Springs 40 degrees, and Mount Laguna, your temperatures dropping into the lower 30s. Looking throughout the day on Friday as that colder air starts to take over throughout the deserts, but we will be dry as we wrap up the week. We're into 40 degrees for Mount Laguna, Borrego Springs 66. San Diego, you'll also see the lower to mid 60s as we head into the day tomorrow. What's the plan for Saturday? Well, this is the cool down that we are tracking here as we head into the weekend, and you'll also see the return of that precip, especially in Northern California. Look at the big dip in the jet stream here. That could send us another round of rain and some snow. We're looking at a quick moving storm, but this could cause travel delays by the weekend. Let's take a look. Coastal forecast here, a temperature staying into the mid 60s, and then that drop in temperatures as we head into the day on Sunday, where we could see a shower or two in the morning. We take you further inland here, where it's going to stay pretty nice for Friday and Saturday, and then temperatures drop on Sunday with some showers around, a high of only 61, and freezing temperatures by Sunday night. Similar pattern as we look into the mountains, as temperatures are going to get much colder by the time we get into Sunday and the return of winter weather. A high temperature of only 31 on Sunday, staying cold but sunny as we head into Monday. The desert looks good over the next couple of days, breezier winds and cooler conditions by next week. For KPBS News, I'm Ariella Scalise.
If your New Year's resolution includes exercising more, eating healthier, or improving your mental health, you may be able to find motivation from a four-legged friend. Mandy Gaither has more on how pets can help you keep healthy resolutions.
It's 2024, and if you're looking to make a healthy change in the new year, a furry friend may be just what you need.
There's a variety of ways that pets can play a role in helping people through the holidays, throughout the year.
Stephanie Filer with Shelter Animals Count says pets can keep you motivated to move, whether it's taking a dog or cat on a walk outside or playing in the backyard. Staying active can benefit you both. Filer says animals can also boost mental health and allow for social connection, not only to your pet, but others you may meet when you're out.
You can connect with dog owners, you can connect with your neighbors more, and it just really helps reduce isolation, especially for seniors or people that are homebound.
If your resolution is to eat healthier, there are many foods which are good for you and your pet. Just research which fruits, veggies, and proteins are safe.
It can be everything from carrots and green beans and apples, and then, fish and chicken, and even for cats, they enjoy small amounts of salmon and eggs and chicken and turkey and cheese and all kinds of things.
Finally, Filer says saving an animal can help you feel good in the new year.
Whether it's adoption or fostering on a temporary basis, bringing an animal in that is in need of a good home is something that can absolutely give you a sense of pride and increase your mental health as well.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Americans ramped up their online shopping during the holiday season. According to Adobe Analytics, shoppers spent a record $222 billion between November 1st and December 31st, and that marks a 5% increase from the previous holiday shopping season. Adobe says shoppers were enticed by deep discounts as well as buy now, pay later options. From Cardiff to Leucadia, Encinitas is chock full of color and culture. It comes in the form of murals and other public art pieces. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer explores this North County beach town's public artwork.
As you walk, bike, or drive along Highway 101 in Encinitas, it's easy to spot dozens of murals. But that wasn't always the case.
There wasn't murals around. I had the whole town, man. I did so many murals around here, down in Cardiff, everywhere.
Kevin Anderson would know. He's been a longtime North County resident and was one of the very first artists to paint murals in Encinitas. He explains how it all started.
1995. So what's that? Almost 30 years. And I started right on D Street in Encinitas at a little Hawaiian restaurant, Keilani's. And that was my first mural in Encinitas.
His work hasn't slowed down since. The 66-year-old is constantly creating private and public art pieces across North County. He stands in front of a large mural he recently painted in the Leucadia neighborhood and describes why public art pieces like his matter to a community.
They're like windows, beautiful windows to look through, that you see something that you don't see every day. It takes you out of the typical mindset of driving down the road. You're walking down the sidewalk and you're thinking of all your thoughts, and you look up and you see this giant mural and you just go, wow. It just takes you away for a minute.
There used to be just a few murals in Encinitas a decade ago. They've now blossomed into an abundance, with many public art pieces focused on the environment and different cultures.
As you go further down,
you can see them along Highway 101, some in plain sight, and others tucked away like hidden treasures.
He said he wanted to do some sort of memorial wall for them, and so that's what this is. And then his dog is Ollie, Zavishla.
Irene Pion is executive director of the Encinitas 101 Main Street Association. She says some of the murals started as a project to reduce crime in an alley. Over time, they helped make Encinitas into an arts hub.
Ultimately, what it has done, without us really knowing, is that it has really inspired a lot of artists, local artists that can do large murals like this, to come down and see downtown Encinitas as a location for art now.
But what spurred the push for more public art in the first place? Encinitas Friends of the Arts president, Naime Woodward, says it was one piece in particular back in 2011.
and then Surfing Madonna happened.
The mosaic showing the Virgin of Guadalupe surfing was originally installed under a public bridge on Highway 101. Woodward says it challenged the very notion of what is art versus graffiti, and it gave a voice to the artists in town.
It brought a lot of conversations in the community from every angle, and that was music to my ear. Very uncomfortable at times, but I think it catapulted the mural programs, and it just, again, put Encinitas on the map.
In the decade plus that followed Surfing Madonna, there's been a wide range of new artists coloring Encinitas, which is a welcome change for the seasoned veteran Anderson. He says watching the growth of public art in his hometown has brought him great joy.
If you look around Encinitas now, everywhere you look, there's murals. And a lot of them are painted. So in the last, 10 years, they've grown exponentially. It's become something.
There have been some creations that have stirred up emotions and controversy. A few public art pieces in town, like the Surfing Madonna, received a lot of pushback.
Some of them were offended because they couldn't figure out why Mother Mary or Guadalupe would be on a surf. But once it was explained, because Save the Ocean that surfers are using and tapping into that divinity to save the ocean, they embraced it.
Pian says she wants even more murals in her town to further push its public art scene.
We do want to add more murals for sure, but we also want to be a lot more mindful of it, because the more and more murals you add, we want to be more purposeful of what they are and how it kind of sends or tells a story.
And Woodward wants to expand beyond murals.
But I do encourage people to see some of the sculptures, hopefully the ones they're going to go up on a temporary basis. There are 5 sculpture pads. They're coming.
After decades of work and countless brushstrokes, Anderson's vision for an art-filled city has arrived, weaving a large, intangible tapestry across his hometown. His influence is undeniable.
I wanted to live in a world where it was like art was really important, and art meant something, and in a world where I could actually show people my art.
Now his murals are spreading into other cities across San Diego and California. And with them comes a little bit of the essence of Encinitas. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow. In the KPBS newsroom, a former federal prosecutor joins NPR's Morning Edition to discuss the next steps in Jeffrey Epstein's saga. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.